Good afternoon, class. Uh, Welcome to this session of International Business Environment. In our last session, we were discussing regarding one of the traditional trade theories, oil trade model, and we were discussing how HO trade theory is an extension compared to other three trade theories among the traditional trade theories. And we also discussed what is the base idea behind HO theory and the factors that are being considered in coming up with theory. In today's class, let us discuss regarding some of the limitations of Hexer-Hoylein trade theory. The first limitation that HO theory is that it is unrealistic assumption. Now, besides the usual assumption that it has for its idea of two countries, two commodities, and that there is no transportation cost, Euler's theory also assumes that there is no qualitative difference in factors of production and that there is identical production function and also that there is constant returns to scale. Now all these assumption makes HO theory unrealistic one. The second assumption is that restrictive. Now Euler's theory is not free from constraints. His theory includes only two commodities, two countries, and two factors. Thus, it is considered to be a restrictive one. And the third limitation is that it is a one-sided theory. Now, according to Euler's theory, supply plays a significant role than that of demand in determining the prices of the factors endowment. But we should know that if demand forces are more significant in some of the countries, especially a capital abundant country, will export labor intensive goods as the price of capital will be high due to high demand for capital. Now the next one is that static in nature. Now unlike the Ricardian theory, the HO model is also static in nature. The theory is based on a given state of economy and when a given production function and does not accept any change. And this does not stand true when it comes for practical way of trade. The next one is Wijnhold's criticism. Now, Wijnhold is one of the famous economists, and according to Wijnhold, it is not the factor prices that determines the cost and commodity prices, but it is commodity prices in the other way around that determines the factor price. Now, one more important limitation is that HO theory ignores consumer demand. Now, Eulen is being criticized that he forgot one of the most important fact that commodity prices are also and most of the times influenced by consumer demand. Then there is one more economist called as Habermas, and he has also criticized the HO theory on the basis that Eulen's theory is based on what we call as partial equilibrium. Now, according to Haberler, HCO theory fails to give a complete, comprehensive, and a general equilibrium analysis. The next limitation is what we call as Leontif Paradox. Now, an American economist who was called as Dr. Wesley Leontif tested Heckscher-Ohlin theory under USA conditions, and according to his study, he found out that USA exports labor-intensive goods and imports capital-intensive goods. But according to HCO theory, USA being a capital abundant country must export capital intensive goods and import labor intensive goods than to produce them at home. Now this situation where, because of Leontief's study, the HO theory is completely opposite of its idea, is called as Leontif Paradox, which negates HO theory. Now there are some other factor also which has been neglected. Now, factor endowment is not the sole factor which influences commodity price, and for that matter, even international trade. The extra oiling theory neglects other factors like maybe technology, technique of production, natural factors, different qualities of labor, and some other necessary factors which are included in the production of products. Now all these also influences international international trade. Moving forward, let us try to understand the Leontif paradox. Now, because of this Leontif paradox, there was a setback to the ideas or the proponents of the Heckscher-Ohlin trade theory in the early 1950s, when Leontif tested his hypothesis, which defined that capital-rich countries export capital-intensive goods and import labor-intensive goods and vice versa. Now he did this study with the help of input-output data of the United States economy. Now his result refuted or negated the Heckscher-Ohlin contention. Now this particular result was shocking news for the economists, that the United States, being a capital-rich country, should be exporting labor-intensive goods and importing labor-intensive goods. Now, several explanations were looked into for resolving the Leontif paradox. Now, the key factors identified in support of Leontif paradox were: USA used to have a protective trade policy, and also it used to take measures whereby it used to import the natural resources and the investment on the human capital. Now there is one more economist, William P. Travis. He examined the Leontif theory in terms of the USA's tariff policy. Now when Leontif tested his hypothesis, US was importing more of such items as crude oil, maybe paper pulp, or primary sector goods, copper, lead, metallic ores, and newsprint, all these are capital intensive. Thus, according to Travis, the USA protective trade policy was responsible for Leontif's finding. Now, the US imports of natural resources like minerals and forest products and the exports of farm products further supported the Leontief's presentation. Now, investment in human capital raises the productivity of labor. That is why the exports of the US consisted of labor-intensive products and its imports were of capital-intensive nature. So hereby we conclude the Hexer-Hoylein theory and the fourth theory under the traditional trade series. First being mercantilism, second one absolute cost advantage, third one comparative cost advantage, and the fourth one Heckscher-Ohlin trade theory. So let us now move forward towards the modern theories of trade. Now, these theories of trade are categorized and can be categorized into two, that is, traditional theories and modern theories of trade. The traditional theories included mercantilism, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, and Heckscher-Ohlin theory, which, if we have observed, emphasizes on trade between countries. Now, these theories are considered as country specific. For instance, if a country is specialized in producing a product for which it is getting an absolute or comparative advantage, then it will get a similar advantage by exporting that product and importing another product from other country. Now, as against this idea of traditional theories, modern theories of trade, which are considered as firm specific, emerged after World War II. Now, these modern theories basically evolved due to the growing importance of multinational cooperation in post-war international economy. Now, under modern trade theories, the focus or the idea has been shifted from the traditional country-based trade theories to modern firm-based theories. Now, this is the main result, or this is because of expansion of multinational cooperation. And the idea of multinational corporations were not addressed by classical economists. Moreover, intra-industry trade was not taken into account, which refers to trade between two countries of goods produced in the same industry. Now, product and service factors, including maybe like brand loyalty, technological invention, and better quality, are incorporated by modern theories for understanding trade flows. Now, the modern theories can be said as first being country similarity theory, the second one is product life cycle theory. The third one is new trade theory. The fourth one is Porter's national demand or competitive advantage. And the fifth one is intra-industry trade theory. But before moving forward with this different type of modern theories of trade, it is important to understand the changing dimension of trade theories. That is to tell how there has been a change from traditional to modern theories of trade. The comparison between traditional and modern theories of trade, or trade is explained by in traditional theories by Adam Smith through absolute advantage and by Ricardo through comparative advantage. And in case of Escher-Weyl theory, supply of factors basically explain and control trade which arises from locally locally abundant factor endowments. Now there are some dimensions of trade which explain the progress from these classical theories to modern theories of trade. Now the first one is that the traditional theories are considered as country specific, whereas modern theories are considered as firm specific. That is to tell, the modern theories consider each firm to be as the base idea. Now the second one is that the concept of traditional theories is explained in terms of labor theory of value, while the idea or the phenomenon of modern theories is based on general equilibrium theory of value. Now, the third changed dimension can be seen that one factor, the labor or the one factor model or the traditional theory is presented by classical economists, while the modern theory is more realistic and is presented by multi-factor, maybe like labor and capital. Moving forward, classical theories are more useful in explaining the trade of homogeneous or undifferentiated products, maybe like agricultural goods, aluminium, crude oil, etc. On the other hand, modern theories are more useful in understanding trade of heterogeneous or differentiated products like personal care products, electronics, etc. Now, the traditional theories put more emphasis on gains from trade, but the modern theory emphasizes on trade structure and forms the basis of trade. Moving forward, traditional economists aims at improving the welfare of every individual, not making anyone worse off. However, this particular assumption does not hold in case of modern theories. The traditional theory is recognized as a single market theory of value, whereas the modern theory is also known as multi-market theory of value. Now, coming to one more point, differences in comparative advantage are attributed by classical economists to differences in production function. Now, in contrast to classical economists, there are similar production functions in modern theory. These production functions attribute the differences in comparative advantage to proportion difference which exists between countries. Now, moving forward, let us try to understand the first or the one among the modern theories of trade, that is country similarity theory. Now, they raised many difficulties in providing empirical evidences of factor proportional theory during the 1960s, and that led to find for new determinants of trade between countries. So one of the economists called as Staffan Linder, he was a Swedish economist, and he proposed a new framework called country similarity theory. His name was Staffan Linder, and he was a Swedish economist. Initially, Linder made efforts to explain intra-industry trade. Now, this theory explained that the consumers of a particular country might have similar preferences if at all they are given or exposed to same development stage. And this idea is one of the form-based theories, which signifies that companies should initially produce for the domestic use. Later, when the companies starts exporting, they explore especially those markets which are similar in terms of customer preferences to their domestic countries. And if at all they succeed in that, it will provide them the best way for success. So this was the base idea that a company should always first produce goods for the consumers who are present in the domestic country, and later on when they start exporting, definitely they try to find the markets which would be similar to that of domestic countries in terms of taste and preference. And if at all a company succeeds in that, it would result in better success. Now, Linda's work focused on customers' preference, that is to tell the demand side, rather than on the production or the supply side. He also explained that mostly trade in manufactured goods will occur between countries which usually tend to have same per capita income, and this would result in common intra-trade or common intra-industry trade. And also further he categorized the international trades into two parts. Now the first being the primary products, that are natural resources products and manufacturers. Now this theory proposed that trade in primary product is a result by the difference in factor endowments, but not in manufactures. Rather, these manufactured exports are determined by internal demand. But, however, developed nations also found that international trade in manufactures happens because these nations are specialized in exporting goods which they manufacture domestically, and only those goods are manufactured by them for which there is greater demand at home. Now, that is to tell, if two countries are considered, maybe United States and United Kingdom, they have identical demand preferences, then their consumers and investors want to look for same products having identical quality, and hence they fulfill their demand of having the same goods. Now this shows preference similarity, which encourages trade between the industrialized countries. Now, Linter further raised an argument to find whether per capita income is the most important criteria. Now, according to him, countries having per capita income or high per capita income will demand high quality goods. Now, when he considered this per capita income and the goods which are being demanded, it could be capital intensive goods or consumer goods. On the other hand, he said that countries having low per capita income will demand low luxury goods, and as a result, countries that gain find it profitable to export their products in other countries where the demand for those products is high. Similarly, manufactured exports of the poor countries should be look for reputed markets in other poor countries having identical demand structures. Moreover, he said that this firm-based theory plays an important role in understanding trade in products where brand loyalty, reputation of products, its quality are significant factors in consumer buying process. Now, this similarity between countries can be explained with the help of three different aspects. It can be said in terms of location, in terms of culture, and also in considering legal aspects, and which has been presented in the PowerPoint. Now, country similarity, if we take location as, maybe Finland and Russia are similar in location. When we consider culture, European countries are similar in culture, and when you take legal aspects or political one, India and Russia, its trade was similar as both were socialistic countries. So this is all about the first one, that is country similarity theory, which tells that than price, it is the demand for the product in the beginning in the domestic country, later on in the foreign country. And also, especially in coming up with this theory, aspects like consumer loyalty, brand reputation, all these factors are being considered. The next one is product life cycle. Now, speaking about product life cycle, this theory was developed by Raymond Vernon of the Harvard Business School. It was developed by Raymond Vernon of the Harvard Business School during the mid 19th 1960s. Now, he had suggested a new approach in which various changes will occur in the newly established product in the market and then get standardized in production. Now, the main idea or the main proposition of the theory is to look at production shifts when products move through various stages of the product life cycle. Now, Vernon significantly diverged from traditional theory and put emphasis on the product rather than factor proportions. Now, he proposed a three-stage model to demonstrate the behavior of United States exports of manufacturer, and it is presented in the PowerPoint. You can see it. Now, the main assumption of this model is that the effects which occur in exports due to innovation and creativity in the product are undermined by technological diffusion and also lower costs in abroad. Now, one of the main basic assumption was that United States was being assumed as innovative country or firm which initially specialized in exporting products to other advanced countries. And Vernon's theory was based on the idea that most of the world's new products had been produced by United States firms and then sold initially in the home market. But it does not mean that the product should be produced in the United States itself. There might be a possibility of producing that product somewhere else at a lower cost then exported back to United States. And after this, the argument further rose that mostly products were initially established in US, simultaneously assuming the uncertainty and risk in introducing newly established products. The firms found better to set production facilities apparently close to the market. Now, the three stages can be said as follows. The first one is new product stage. The second one is maturing product stage. And third one is standard product stage, which are being represented in the x-axis. Now, the stage one is new product stage. Initially, in the life cycle of a new product, large amount of capital and also on the other hand, a large amount of skilled labor is necessary for research and also development. And it is in this stage that the demand is growing rapidly, and according to this theory in United States, whereas the demand in other advanced countries is lacking as compared to this highly advanced countries. It can be seen here where the consumption line is lesser in developing other advanced countries compared to that of United States, and in developing countries it is very low in number. Now, the second stage is the maturing product. In this stage, the product is being increasingly standardized due to expansion in the product or the production. The product started growing in other advanced countries. Thus, foreign producers also started getting benefit of producing product for their home markets. But it is also noteworthy that demand for highly skilled labor diminishes because of fall in need for flexibility in design. Now, United States firms also might establish production facilities in advanced countries. Hence, this will lower the need for exports from US firms. Now, the last stage is the standardized product stage. Now, in this final stage, the product becomes completely standardized and price is considered as the main tool. Now, this encourages cost to play an important role in competitive process. Hence, the country started producing with cheap unskilled labor, having access to large amount of capital. The product made progress and have become profitable from the innovative firm. But now the country's advantage has shifted in its location of production because the technology of the innovating firm has matured. And due to cheap labor costs, firms of advanced countries are now able to export to US firms. That is why in the third stage, the import is being more in US. Hence, there has been a shift in the production from high cost sites to low cost sites in other advanced countries and then to developing countries. Thus, the process continues where advanced countries acquired production advantage over US firms, and on the same side, advanced countries are losing advantage over developing countries. Therefore, innovating firm's country becomes a net importer of the product, whereas developing countries become net exporter of the product. Now, herein we can see the evolution of the product life cycle theory. Now, under this, it is noted that labor and capital levels identify and analyze the country's production or consumption, for that matter, even export and import. Now, firms do not play a major role in analyzing them. The switching of production showed changing patterns of trade but did not result in loss of market share, profitability, or competitiveness of firms. Now, due to this, the country's comparative advantage might change. Now, this firm-based theory plays a crucial role in explaining international investment and put greater emphasis in analyzing the impact of technology on product cost. So, this theory is not only able to recognize the capital mobility across countries, but is also has made efforts to switch the locus or the focus of production from country to the product. Hence, it becomes necessary to match the product by its maturity stage with its location of production so as to analyze competitiveness. But the main importance of this theory is that this theory which Vernon has given holds during the United States global dominance. To be specific, might be from 1945 to 1975, because Vernon's argument regarding most products development developed in United States seems what we had discussed an idea called as ethnocentric. But this theory has limited relevance in the modern world. Now, we can also point some of the limitations of this theory. The first one being Vernon's theory focuses on technology-based products which mostly experience modification in product or the production process as they reach the maturity stage. Now, when it comes to Vernon's theory, it does not take into consideration either resource-based products or service during the stages of maturity. Now, this theory is considered that is more appropriate for products which eventually fall or which eventually become victim to mass production and therefore cheap labor forces. But when it comes to product life cycle theory, though the theory seems of limited relevance, but by considering all other things, the theory aimed at you know closing a gap between traditional trade theories and modern trade theories in which mobility of capital, technology, information and firms is better than that of classical theories. So in today's session, we discussed regarding the limitation of extra-oiling trade theory, the idea behind Leontif Paradox, and then we moved forward towards the modern trade theory in which we discussed the two. First one being country similarity theory and the second one is product life cycle theory. I hope I was not fast, and these theories are simple and easy to understand. There are still three more theories, and maybe in the coming session, by discussing those three theories, we would be winding up with the first chapter, and later on we shall discuss the second chapter. So I have taken down your attendance. Thank you for your patience listening. You can leave the meeting for the day.